Hello there, and welcome back to ClueCon Weekly. And this week, I'm delighted to say that we got Julien. Is it Chavanton? Is that a correct pronunciation, yes. Julien?
Chavanton, yes, that's almost the correct pronunciation.
It was the Englishy version of the French there. Well, it's great to have you along. And you've been a Flowroute man now for, is it 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, 3 years now. Mm-hmm.
3 years. Great stuff. Well, we'll talk about what you've been up to there and getting onto the technical subjects before too long. But just ahead of starting the recording, we were talking about the fact that you've just got an RV. And RVs are very dear to the heart of people within the Freeswitch community. As you probably know, Brian West has got an RV. I think Mike Jerris has got an RV. They like getting out and about. What are you going to be doing with your RV, Julien?
Yeah, like maybe I will continue what I'm doing. So like last week I headed south to Highway 101, and I did during low season you can even park on the beach. So in some beaches are open to cars, and you can spend the night there, or the national parks are almost empty. So I'll just go in every direction, start with a small radius, and then I will plan for bigger, longer, further away trips.
Great stuff. It sounds really exciting.
Thanks. Yes, and I know you will be coming in Seattle in a few months. Maybe you can visit us at the office. I can show you my RV. Maybe.
Yeah, you never know. On that particular trip, it's going to be a little bit of a tight schedule, as they say in the good old US of A. But yeah, we'll see. It'd be nice to meet up, because Seattle's a great place. You've got the Puget Sound and other amazing scenery around there, as well as, of course, going inland, Mount St. Helens, right, and Washington, and so on. All sorts of incredible things to see. Many, many years ago, I did do a flight of Mount Volcano when it was inactive, I'm pleased to say. And it's just amazing seeing some of the landscape in that part of the world. Now, just refresh everybody's memory. You've been with Flowroute for 3 years. What is it you do at Flowroute, Julien?
Yes, so I'm the tech lead on the voice routing platform. Like Flowroute is mainly about SIP trunking, DIDs, and outbound VoIP trunk, and messaging, yes, and toll-free, international toll-free, 911. So the largest part of the activity is to handle the inbound, outbound calls and DIDs, porting and things like that. So my focus is on the voice routing platform, which was built only using Kamailio. Only SIP proxies were used.
Right.
And some media relays were used, and now we are using RTP engine, but most of the time we use direct media. So I'm in charge of putting this platform in the cloud, and with my coworkers, of course, and making sure we have strong regression testing and all these things.
Sounds like you're kept very, very busy there.
Yeah, it's still it does require still a lot of work, but I mean the platform is built now, so we are doing new products. Like the E911, the toll-free, the next generation E911. Thanks to West and Trado, they are, I think they are maybe leader in this industry. I'm not sure about the market, but they have these call centers that they sell to the sheriff offices and everything.
Right. And I was going to ask, are you having to do anything about stir and shaken and caller ID validation, that sort of stuff at the moment?
Not yet, you're right. I'm just waiting for an opportunity to be part of this. Maybe I think the open source world can bring a lot of solutions. So yeah, I'm just waiting to see when is West at large going to care more about this. And I'm not sure. West is a big company with 10,000 employees. Now it's called Entrado, so I'm not sure. Sometimes we still did not establish the link between all the teams, so maybe there is a new project.
This is the new parent company of Flowroute.
Yes, right. West bought Flowroute, and now West was rebranded Entrado.
Entrado, right. Okay. keep a lookout for then what's going to happen there. Now, Julian, I believe you've got a presentation that you're going to talk us through.
Right.
Would you like to go ahead and introduce that?
I have to introduce myself first? Yes? That's what you said? Sorry, I was...
you and the nature of your presentation as well.
Okay, yes. So, yes, in the end, so I started working in computer and telephony integration before voice over IP was mature enough in early 2000.
So ISDN and stuff like that.
Yeah, right. It was ISDN or R2MF, right? Even before I even worked with making a Bion, this Bion open source GNU telephony project. I worked on it. I know some other people in this community used it at that time. It was a decent solution for even with proprietary boards like Dialogic and all these guys.
Yes, I came from that background myself.
Ah, okay. And then Asterisk came out, Linphone, and all these softwares, and things changed. And the SIP trunking became more of an option for most carriers, so it was more... So yeah, I've been spending the last 20 years in this world of voice over IP, and so I work with Freeswitch a lot. Also, when I was working with Libon in France, we used Freeswitch to transcode mobile phone calls using Opus. So we did deep dive a lot in Opus. And
well, it's great to learn a little bit more about you personally, Julien, and what you're doing at Flowroute. And now moving on to your presentation, could you introduce that for us? And then we'll cut to the slideshow.
Yes. All right, David. Yes. So for this presentation, I chose to do a second pass on the presentation I've made at ClueCon last year. So it's about building a WebRTC to VoIP gateway for when you use Flowroute DIDs. In the end, it's a product, but at the same time, this presentation will cover more the open source technology behind it. So we launched that 6 months ago, and I'm just going to look again at this presentation, and then it's mainly the same presentation, but I will add some a slide with some things. I think some small details, like in light blue, you can see some small details that we need to take care about that will, in the end, impact customer experience. So as I saw when I use your technology, sorry, you were saying something?
I was going to say, that's excellent, because if you're doing a kind of a revisit of a presentation that you already know, your delivery will be even better, Julian.
I did not do the training. I did watch many of your presentations, and I know I'm not there. I don't have I do not practice enough, unfortunately. I don't have, but I'll try to do my best. Thanks, David.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. I'm going to cut over now to the slides so that we can see them on the screen. And it's over to you, Julien.
Okay, nice. So yeah, the same slides, but with a few adjustments. So in the end, I will be speaking about this WebRTC gateway that we built using Kamailio and RTP engine. So I'll be covering some of the recipes we are using, like the Topos module, rewriting, normalizing the SDP, and I'll speak about these JavaScript libraries that we are sharing to make sure we have the client application we can use and we can share as an example for anyone to test our platform while they build their own client libraries. Then I'll speak about the way we gather quality of service, the metrics, and how we can control Opus because it's audio only our product right now. And I will speak about our platform, how you can use it, how anyone using a Flowroute DID can use it, and where it is deployed and how to use it. And finally, a new slide, I will share my thoughts about these, some of the things that we are maybe people will have to handle properly, like the selection of the audio input and things like that.
Right.
So yeah, let's jump in then. Any comment, David?
No, it's looking good, Julien. I'm nodding my head, and just to prove I'm nodding my head, I'm going to nod my head there, looking good. And I'm going to pop you back in the top corner there.
Okay. So yeah, we had this existing platform built on Kamailio, and we use it everywhere. And we added 2 new roles like servers, proxies doing certain things. One of them we call the Edge proxy, web Edge proxy. So it is running the WebSocket module, and it's working together with RTP engines. And then to protect our core, we have a new breed of Edge proxy that we call core-in. So to come inside our core, they're not publicly exposed, but they will trust the Edge proxy. So we have like these 2 servers. And on this one, we did use the Topos module, and we do further SDP normalization. So we have more flexibility. So I'll explain the recipes we are using in Kamailio to do this next. So mainly this Edge proxy web is using the Kamailio WebSocket module, and we are using SIP, of course, because Flowroute is all about SIP. So I know many people will wonder, why would you use SIP? I mean, you don't have to, but in our case, it's working with existing interconnections, so SIP is making the most sense. So with Kamailio, you can use the WebSocket module. It will implement this SIP over WebSocket RFC. And in the end, this function called WebSocket handle and shake will do what's specified in the RFC. So mainly what it will do, it will switch protocols using the defined procedure, and the application layer will switch between HTTP to SIP. So yeah, I'm not going to go down further into details. This is well documented in many places.
Okay.
Now, one of the recipes is this Topos module. Kamailio is proposing you have topology hiding or topology stripping. Both of them are modules. You have like 2 modules at least to hide your topology. We chose Topos stripping because it's also shrinking the message size. And we do use UDP often. So with UDP, the MTU, we want to keep the message small. So this is an example of what the Topos module is doing to a message. When we have all these proxies like we do, you have all these ups. We have these record route and via headers added for each up. So we can see all of them are removed, and the contact header is being replaced by one generated by Topos in green on the lower part. You can see it. So it's also fixing some interoperability problems with some carriers that will just rewrite the transport in the contact header or do some things that may break transport selection. In this case, Topos will also fix some problems. So it will shrink the message size, and it will fix some interoperability problem. People will not need to support record route, and we will keep a copy of our contact header anyway ourselves. So the Topos module is either on or off. It's quite easy to configure on Kamailio. You just add it to your config, and it's taking place for every messages. And it's the way it works. It's rewriting. It's like hiding or restoring the messages in the way in and out using just before being sent on the network or received from the network using some core Kamailio core callback functions. So you don't see the altered message in the routing script. So everything is kind of transparent and easy to manage, in my opinion. So yeah, the Topos module is doing quite well in many use cases for us.
Right.
And then, yeah, sorry, any comments? No?
No, just agreeing with you.
Oh, good. You're using it also. Yeah, I like it better than topology hiding, because topology hiding is like increasing the message size, and sometimes some UA are not compatible, unfortunately. Also, it's not just the MTU. Sometimes it's even creating other problems. But I mean, I'm not saying it's not. It may work very well in some use cases. So yeah, Topos is great for us. And now the other thing we want to sanitize or normalize is the SDP. So here I'm sharing an example. On the upper part, you have some SDP already altered by RTP engine. Thanks for all the good work. I'm not even going down into the details about RTP engine. It's just working there's many documentation available, and it's working quite well. I'm sure most people will agree. But in this case, RTP engine can be configured to strip down some SDP lines and everything. So I'm not sharing the configuration we are using, but that's what we get. It's configurable, but it's not enough to become a pure RTP SIP. So we sanitize it further, and we got tight control over it to make sure it's as small as possible. Again, for the UDP-MTU problem, and so we remove all the unnecessary SDP, like the static payload type. They do not need an RTP map in the end. And we keep this, in the lower part, you can see Opus is there in RTP map and the fmtp line. So 109 is the dynamic payload type ID. And we have these 3 lines. We'll speak about them a little bit more, a little bit later. But yeah, that's the end result. And how do we do that in Kamailio? I have this little example to share. In Kamailio, the way you can do it is you have this variable called $RB, request body, and then you have the function called set body at line 22. So you can take the body, you can play with it, extract things from it, create a new body, and set it. So in this example, we take the body, we put it in an AVP called temp body, and then we use AVP substitution that can provide regular expression functionality. So in this case, we can extract all the A lines from it. That's just an example, but the entire code is, the entire routing script logic would be too big to fit on the screen anyway. So the second example I'm sharing is on line 6, 7, 8, is once you get your, let's say your Opus payload ID, the one that was 109 in the previous slide, you can get it using AVP subst. In the end, what the important part is on line 7 here, you have a technique in Kamailio where you can say, apply the match to many lines. So that's quite convenient. So it will find in a list of line. And in this case, it's finding what I'm searching for is the fmtp line of Opus. And then the xinfo will just log it. So you have a reference on how to do this kind of thing with Kamailio. And at the end, yeah, sorry, David.
No, I was just saying great. Yeah, good.
Then on line 10, 11, 12, etc., we create our final template. So we have the V9, one O line, one unicast. There are just all these lines in the SDP that you will output, and you concatenate them using write body. So, yes. So you can do all of this in Kamailio. There's a lot of regular expression mangling, so it's not straightforward always, but it's working quite well and it's quite flexible. So yeah, we saw we were like playing with Opus FMTP parameters. I mean, we were caring about it. There's many reasons why we want to make sure the FMTP parameters are passed, and we may even want to configure things in. So the FMTP line is like a configuration parameter for a given codec. So in the case of Opus, when we use it with WebRTC, WebRTC doesn't know if we are going to play music or speech, and by default it will use the hybrid mode. So it will be ready for both, and it will try to, based on the constraints it's having, it will have to make compromise. But in most use cases, we know we want speech. So we know it would be best to tell Opus from the start, do not go into super wideband or full band speech. Do not go in the hybrid mode. There's an extra cost in the hybrid mode, so I'm sharing here some a statement from the developers of Opus saying it's complicated. You're adding complexity if you use the hybrid mode. So it's best to avoid it when you are sure you don't need music. So how to do it with Freeswitch, how to tell Opus, the remote WebRTC Opus encoder, hey, I don't want music. In Freeswitch, you can do it by setting, it's a global parameter. I think it's still the case. So it's not, you cannot configure it dynamically, unfortunately now. If there is a need, I guess someone will make a merge request. But you can say max playback rate for in opus.conf 16. And from now on, Freeswitch will add it to the fmtp parameters as we can see line 101, line 18 here. We see now max playback rate equals 16,000. This is wideband. So this is, as we saw before, it's not super wideband or full band, so it will stick in the silk mode. And it will be HD, right? It's more, it's already HD, but not probably what you need for HD voice in general.
Right.
And then is WebRTC really going to use this FMTP parameter? I verified, and yes, it is. And we can see here from the source code of WebRTC, it will say 16,000 Hertz, set bandwidth, Opus bandwidth, wideband. So it will just follow this FMTP instruction that was passed using FMTP. So you can tell that the encoder on inside the browser will already know that you cannot play back more than that. So there's no point in encoding more samples. It will just send you what you need, and it will avoid the complexity of the hybrid mode.
Right.
That's one little trick when with Opus. So yeah, another thing we did was to develop these JavaScript client libraries or example application. Thanks to Evolux, they did the UI part and most of this in the end.
Yeah,
so we are sharing. Sorry, David.
Good stuff, Julien. Good stuff.
Thanks. It's all they deserve most of the credit. So in the end, yeah, I'm just sharing the architecture. They use the WebRTC adapter for a better cross-browser compatibility, and we have like two classes. One of the QoS reporting that is in. We'll look at it next. It's how we are transferring some QoS metrics from WebRTC to our server. So it's an initial attempt to gather as much information as possible. We'll look at it in the next slides. So yeah, these applications, they kind of look like that. You have a UI version using React, and you have a more raw version just using inline, also using the library, but easier to manage for most people, I guess, to do basic tests. And then, yeah, this QoS library I was speaking about, this is an example of the early version. We are transferring them using SIP messages. Why? Because we then capture them in Homer. For us, SIP is more natural. We can also share it to the end customer call center, so they could trace, they could gather these metrics as well. So in this case, it's a Firefox one. It's mainly the same thing you would get in RTCP, so it's not that valuable. But there is much more information in Chrome, or I'm not sure how to activate it in Firefox right now. So there must be a way. I was unable to do it. But yeah, in Chrome you have more metrics like these ones that will give you a lot of information about the WebRTC performance in terms of QoS, like what was the jitter buffer, the adaptive jitter buffer's average size, for example. That will tell us a lot about was there excessive jitter, and why was there a lot of delay? Was it because there was too much jitter, so WebRTC adaptive jitter buffer tried to cope with it? And also we can tell what was the audio level of the microphone. So our call center, if we were able to hear the caller on the web, we can tell if his volume was decent or not. I will look at this a bit further in the next slides. And then concealed samples is like a good metric to know, was there gaps where we were not able to play samples that we received due to jitter or losses? And Opus ended up doing packet loss concealment, and we can make the ratio of the entire call duration to identify degradation that could be caused by packet loss concealment. So they have lots of metrics, and they're they can be very useful to troubleshoot problems. Yeah, so now our platform, like we deployed these servers in 6 points of presence. And I think in strategic location to have our customers East Coast, West Coast, or Europe. So Packet.net or AWS. So if anyone is in the AWS, you can get direct media with us. Or we can use AWS backend to transfer between sites. So how can you select? Let's say you have your client JavaScript client application, and you want to send control where in which point of presence the users will be sending the traffic. We can't use SRV with WebSocket; they are not supported. But in the case of JSIP, at least you can do it with these extra configuration parameters. You can find them in our example application, but in the end you have like load balancing with failover, I believe, because you can set weight and multiple ones. So I'm not sure exactly about the exact failover strategy, in which case it will fail over or not. But it's at least if you refresh your browser, I'm sure it will always work if one server is down. I'm not sure how quickly it will fail over if a server was lost. But anyway, there is some decent support for load balancing with failover. And most of the time anyway, there's no need to failover. So you will just control where the media goes and the signaling. And then, so now the users on the web are sending their signaling and media to a one point of presence, but customers are also able to control where we will relay this media using our existing preferred POP and edge strategies. So this is something already supported for any inbound and outbound call with Flowroute. So in the end, customers can set their preferred point of presence, their global one, and any inbound route will inherit from it, or they can set a specific inbound edge strategy for a specific DID. So you end up being able to control where the media will pass through. Because if your equipment is on the same AWS AZ or POP, then the media will just come in and remain in this AZ door. So yeah, we're using existing things here. And yeah, I think one of the biggest problem, as a WebRTC user myself, I'm still facing problems once in a while with my my microphone, and we can see most WebRTC application will let you configure and diagnose your inputs, your audio inputs and outputs, like Hangout, for example. And I know you also provide some of this. I saw in your SignalWire RTC solution.
Yeah.
So in the end, Hangout or other application will let you select or change your microphone in the middle of a WebRTC communication, and it will also tell you, is it capturing anything from your microphone? And it will even tell you, hey, you're talking, but you're muted. So it will do clever things to help the end user, simple clever things to make sure we're not ending up in a one-way audio for the wrong reason, not something very technically challenging, but more a user settings. So if we look at the WebRTC stats, some of them can be used to verify that the microphone of the user on the web is working well, and we do receive audio from it. And we can use that to warn the user, hey, something is wrong. We don't get we don't have audio from you, like Hangout is doing. So we can see in Chrome, like we have all of these metrics available with GetStats. So we can have microphone capture metrics, like the audio level and the energy and the total amount of samples that were gathered on the microphone. And it will also tell us about echo cancellation. So between the speaker and the microphone of the user on the internet, on the web, was there some echo detected? Was it what was the amplitude of this? this echo, and was it suppressed by the echo canceller of WebRTC? So I think what we really need to do is to tackle these little problems because they're not. It's not rocket science. And I think many communications are failing because of simply because the microphone is not working, and sometimes the guy he has to close his browser. Sometimes these things can still happen. I know people that are using Apple computers. Usually things are working better for them, so they kind of. But me like using Linux on ThinkPads, sometimes something can go wrong. And I'm guessing it can. There's many things that can go wrong still for many users. So that's where we should invest a little bit to help our customers to manage these little details by giving them examples on how to do it. I think there is quick gain to be made by taking good care of these things. And then the last slide is about the way that our test application is in fact using Freeswitch, and Freeswitch is quite good with Opus, as we saw. And for anyone using Opus, he could use us anyway, just out of simplicity. Anyone with DIDs and some Freeswitch server, it would be a great fit just to start by using us so that they have very little work to do on the backend side. It's simpler for them. Even if Freeswitch can do WebRTC and many other solutions out there are very good at it. So our beta opt-in is still there. We are still in the beta opt-in. We're trying to understand what will go wrong, and we do provide the service almost for free because you just pay the normal cost of an inbound call. But we want to understand what is really important, what are the pitfalls, and gather more information. Yeah. So
thank you for sharing that, Julien.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
We're back to normal now, and all your contact details there, and also nice to see JSSIP in use. That's been kind of serving the community for a good long time, hasn't it? JSSIP.
Yes, you're right. And then speaking about that, some people were saying, why are you not using sip.js? Well, I would say because JSSIP is working for us. But I've heard that there may be some compatibility issues somewhere, and some people are they think sip.js is better. As an example, we do prefer sip, which one is it? JSSIP, right? But there's no specific reason. I think it's very it's a very compliant stack, and
yeah, it's a nice little tool. I think that I remember using it back in the days of Asterisk to do WebRTC demos and things. So it's been out there a long time, and so thank you very much to people that supply it, Iñaki and other people that are involved there. But thank you very much, Julien, for going through that presentation with us. Good to see you making use of Freeswitch there as well for your demos. That's great. Okay, so thanks for the presentation. Is there any other things that you'd like to say before we clear down for today, having given us all of that goodness?
No, I'm more curious about what is happening on the Freeswitch side, SignalWire side of WebRTC, but I guess I will learn from it in the near future. I'm not looking at the right place.
Yeah, I'm afraid I certainly wouldn't be the right person to give you the technical details on that.
But I know that you are working hard on video, and I think video is more. There's a lot more going on in video in the past few years. So audio is, I think, it's quite stable. There is very few regressions. So I know you guys are working on a much more feature-rich solution.
That's right. Maybe at some stage in the future we could get you on and Tony and have a little talk. You could ask questions and Tony could answer them about what's going on in Freeswitch with WebRTC. But for now, Julien, I'd like to say thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come and tell us about that WebRTC gateway.
All right, thank you, David. Yeah, always a pleasure to speak with you. I hope my presentation was decent in terms of preparation. I know you have high standards, but thanks, David.
We're very, very pleased to have you along, and some good key information there. So I'm going to say bye for now, and we'll look forward to next time we can have you along on ClueCon Weekly. All the best to you.
Thank you, David. Bye.